perhaps would be interesting because you may not have yourself an opportunity to witness and grasp some of the changes that I'm talking about. As I said, we've all come out of 2.5 very difficult years because of the COVID. And because even during this period, as Foreign Minister, I have continued traveling. I had an occasion to see what was happening in other societies, how they have coped with the same challenges, what is it we could learn one way or the other from them, what are the comparisons in a sense. And the big point which I want to share with you is that perhaps much more than many other societies, perhaps much more than our own expectations, we have come through a very difficult period with a great deal of determination and fortitude. As we celebrate 75 years of independence, we should also, we naturally would reflect on all the achievements and the challenges we've had in these 75 years. But the immediate challenge, the challenge of COVID, I think is perhaps a point worth reflecting for all of us. That a country could actually get 200 billion shots in the arm, that it could do this in such an organized fashion, that it actually could do this pretty much with in pace with most of the developed countries of the world. That this exercise was digitized, that it was validated in a way in which we not only got the vaccination done, but we got the certification of such a massive exercise so well organized. I think that itself might be a good point to reflect on. It's a good point to reflect on because perhaps a few decades earlier, we would have waited our turn in the global vaccination queue. We would have waited for somebody else to have discovered the vaccines, to have produced the vaccines, then slowly it would have come to us. And instead, actually, we not only had a made in India vaccine, we also had an invented in India vaccine. And the scale in which we did it, the scale in which we produced it and we deployed it, that itself actually speaks of a very different India. During the COVID challenge, I was obviously involved in the external interface initially. The fact that so many of our people were stuck abroad, the precautions we had to take in terms of travel out, travel in, the effort we had to make to actually set up very rapidly the infrastructure to deal with COVID, get the PPEs, the ventilators, initially even some of the APIs for the medicines and the medicines themselves. But I was also involved as part of a ministerial group which actually was charged with responding to the COVID, which was headed by our health minister. So I had, in a sense, an insight as a foreign minister into what was happening, but I had an insight as part of a ministerial group. And for me, the revelations of this period actually were tremendous because it showed what our country could do when faced with a huge challenge. It showed actually what were the latent capabilities in our country that we could now bring to bear to meet this once-in-a-century challenge. I spoke to you about the vaccination, the scale of the vaccination, which actually has been the biggest that any country has done. But there are many other stories, not all of them told so sharply and expressively as they should be. You know, very early, as we actually headed for the lockdown in 2020, I mean, now it seems ages away. In 2020, when we were actually looking at the socio-economic consequences of what needed to be done, Prime Minister was very clear that he actually told all of us as ministers that a century ago, when the Spanish flu came to India, more people actually died of hunger than they did of the flu. And he said this was not going to happen on his watch. So, among the accomplishments actually of the last 2 years has been that we actually have supported day after day 800 million people to whom the government has provided free rations, and done it in a way in which the old Indian leakage system, that 100 leaves Delhi and only 15 actually reaches the recipient, that did not happen. That 800 million people actually, week after week, now it's almost 27, 28 months that this has been going on, actually went through this period assured that they would not be lacking for food. But you know, households just don't need food, they also need some cash at hand. And because we had done the Jan Dhan Yojana, because so many people had bank accounts, now we realized how far-seeing that policy was. And actually more than 400 million people, a very large proportion of them women, actually get money put into their accounts so that for the daily necessities, they too do not have to scrounge or look elsewhere for support. Now, I mention this to you because just think for a moment, 75 years of independence, you have 200 million vaccination shots, you are feeding 800 million people, you are funding 400 billion, feeding 800 million, funding 400 million, vaccinated 2 billion. Look at the scale of this and ask yourself, what is the India that has made this possible? And that, to my mind, these numbers, 2 billion, 800 million, 400 million, this is the transformation of India that is underway, and that is the country which I would like all of you living abroad to actually grasp and appreciate. Now, it's not only what we have done in a crisis. Even this, the vaccination, the food, the bank account, was made possible because, especially in the last 8 years, we have actually become a digitized society. That what we were famous for as serving the world, we were the back office, we were the place where IT work was done. We have actually brought our skills, our talent, our determination onto our own progress. And this is the result of that. Now, that's not the only result of that. Let me give you some other examples of how we are progressing. Many of you would have heard of this Ujjwala scheme, where we have replaced firewood with LPG gas cylinders. Now, when you look at a scheme like this and see the beneficiaries, actually you have 80 million people whose houses have become cleaner today because of the change of their cooking. When we look, there is a program today to connect every house to tap water. Now, tap water is something you probably take as given in Thailand, but those of you who have lived in India or been recently to India know what a challenge it is. You also know what a challenge it is to connect every household to an electricity connection. In fact, you know what a challenge it is for people to even have houses. Now, today the big programs which are changing India are to connect every house to power, to connect every house, Har Ghar Jal. So, every house to connect them to tap water. To make sure actually there is home ownership. There is a big Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, both in the rural areas and the urban areas, to actually finance building of houses. But these are also difficult times. So it's not enough to only provide a safety net, even though historically, at least in recent times, our country did not have a safety net. So while we were erecting a safety net for society, we were also addressing many of the immediate consequences of the COVID. And some of those consequences were consequences of employment, of financial viability, of resources. So you actually have big schemes today, schemes from the vendor on the street who has a scheme called Swanidhi, which gives him or her unsecured loans to do their business, to small and medium enterprises. Small and medium enterprises, their value to employment and to social stability have actually become fully recognized in this period. Along with this, exhortation to business to make in India. But to make in India, it is our responsibility as a government to make it easier to do business in India. So when today there is, I present to you a picture of an India which has come through this COVID period, obviously like everybody else. We have been scarred, we have felt the pain. There is barely a family I know which has not lost someone, or where people haven't had COVID. So I in no way minimize the trials and tribulations which society went through. But the sense I wish to convey to you is that this Agni Pariksha, we have actually come through it. We have come through it actually with a great deal of learning, with new capabilities, with a strong confidence, with a sense that as a country, as a society, as a people, we have the ability to deal with such challenges. And not just deal with such challenges in a survivable mode, but to deal with it in a way in which we are once again coming back to our high growth trajectory. We will be the fastest growing major economy this year and probably in the foreseeable future. We dealt even with the COVID because a lot of big economies actually, in a sense, threw money at the COVID problem, especially in the initial phases. We have actually followed a far more fiscally prudent policy. That it is a policy where we ensured social stability, we ensured that the weak, vulnerable, the disturbed, those who lost their jobs, they were secured. But we encouraged a cleanup of the system. We saw reforms in this period, important reforms, business reforms, tax reforms, labor reforms, education reforms. So we have actually used this period well. And it's very interesting that the first year that we have come out of the COVID, we have actually posted the largest ever exports in our history. And that actually tells us, we are not, a lot of countries today, if you read a newspaper, would say we are back to pre-COVID levels. That is for us now history. We are today looking well beyond where we were pre-COVID. And that, in a sense, is the state of the nation that I wanted to share with you. But it is a state of the nation where I think all that we have done in recent years, built on over the achievements of this last 75 years, recognized and trying to address many of the shortcomings of this period, we still have a long way to go. And yesterday's message of the Prime Minister actually laid out, he asked Indians really to take 5 pledges. It was a pledge to strive to make India a developed nation, and a developed nation in the next 25 years. The next 25 years, as we head towards centenary, what a period which the Prime Minister called Amrit Kal. The second was to put behind us the colonial legacy. The sense that, somewhere there are stronger powers, the standards to which we must conform, judgments to which we must bend, that he actually urged a kind of an awakening of a spirit of self-confidence. And after 75 years of independence, actually firmly putting that colonial period behind us. The third one, related to it, was he called for all of us to display greater pride in our heritage and tradition. That our culture, our cuisine, our language, our way of life. And our way of life, it is not just in a cultural sense we are talking about. You know, when we speak about Atmanirbhar Bharat, when we have today an enormous revival of our craftsmanship, there is a movement which I don't know how many of you are familiar with, called One District, One Product, where every district of India, the 750 districts of India, are encouraged, each of them, actually to develop their products and put them out, in a sense, as a sort of geographical indication, put their cultural history out into the world as a product for the rest of the world to see. The fourth, of course, the fourth pledge which the Prime Minister urged us yesterday was to strengthen the unity and integrity of the country. And the fifth one was actually to ask all of us to be more conscious of our duties, because it's very easy to speak about rights and entitlements, but all rights and entitlements happen only if the sense of duty is equally strong. So I want to share with you, therefore, as we complete 75 years of independence, the picture of a country on the move, full of confidence, a leader with a vision, with a strategy, with ambition, who can capture the aspirations of our people, especially young people. And that too is something you have to see to believe. You know, I as a minister travel around. I actually, probably more as a politician than a minister, travel around a lot in India. And I get to meet young people, I get to visit schools, go to universities, go to, laboratories. And what I see today in terms of innovation, startups, inventions, it's actually really sort of beyond imagination. It's not only the innovative world which is on the move. I think any of you who go today to any part of India will also see actually the infrastructure change which is taking place. And since you all live in this part of the world, Southeast Asia, you actually know how much infrastructure development was at the heart of Southeast Asia's development. And there is today that deep belief in India that if we have to actually post higher growth, if we have to spread prosperity even within the country, if our economic efficiencies have to improve, then infrastructure modernization is very much part of it. And that too, there is not just a city in India. Even if you get out of towns, out of urban areas, you can actually see construction on the way, railway lines, airports, roads, power grids, power stations, all of that is happening. So as I said, the sense which I wish to share with you is really that confidence that 75 years after independence, we are today a country very confident looking at our future, very determined that we are going to pick up the pace of growth, that we are in the next 25 years going to show a great deal of ambition and a great deal of determination to achieve those goals. A lot of that, of course, depends on the state of the world, and that is something which is my direct remit as Foreign Minister. And I think anybody who follows the news, who picks up a paper or who looks at the social media, I think all of you would agree that the state of the world is quite challenging right now. Part of it was the COVID and the economic, the disruptive impact it had. I think today developments in Ukraine, the impact it's had on energy prices, on food prices, in terms of trade disruption, that is a source of anxiety. But those are general problems. There are also problems that are sometimes specific to any country. I think many of you know, in our case, for example, we have long been challenged by the activities of, by the impact of cross-border terrorism. Last 2 years, we've also had a challenging situation in our northern borders, where our armed forces are deployed to protect our lands against a situation that was really something which went against understandings that we had with our northern neighbor China. In all of this, there are the big global challenges which we all like to shape. After all, India is almost 1/5 of humanity. So the future of the planet, whether it's the impact on us or whether it is the contribution that we can make. So it could be climate change, it could be, it could be pandemics, it could be maritime security. There are a whole host of issues out there. So in all of this, where does India and Thailand, where does that relationship figure? For us, ASEAN, has been in many ways associated with the period of reform. From 1992, when economic reforms started in India, this was also a period when our relationship with ASEAN picked up. So there is a natural association of ASEAN with high growth, with greater trade, with more openness, with a much more energetic economic policy, and that continues even today. Among ASEAN countries, I think Thailand has been particularly important for us. It is today a very major partner. Trade, I think, is in excess of $15 billion. It is a partner actually with us, not just in the ASEAN structures, but in many other organizations. So there is an organization called BIMSTEC, which Thailand is currently chairing. We have the Mekong Ganga Cooperation Initiative. There too, India and Thailand are members. And there is a lot that we do between us, we do with third countries. So I am here today and over the next 2 days, really to take our relationship with Thailand forward. We have a mechanism called the Joint Commission, which I will be chairing along with my counterpart. And our objectives obviously is to build greater political comfort, to increase trade, to look at what are the barriers for, which stand in the way of more economic activity, to promote more investments between our countries. And we've seen again some notable developments there, to make it easier for people to travel between the two countries. So our job in a way is is a promotional job. It's partly a marketing job as well, but to really see how we take the relationship forward. And this really matters to us today, because in a much more volatile and uncertain world, it's a bit like markets. If there is volatility, you look for where there is stability. And I think both ASEAN and India find in each other a source of stability when they look at the world. So for us, this relationship in turbulent times will actually count even more than it does. So I can certainly assure you that we will continue to pay a lot of attention, and I'm very confident that this relationship will continue to grow. Now, for any relationship to grow, obviously, the Indian community has a role to play. And I know in every sense of the term, you have truly been an exemplary community. And I say this not just because I want to please you. I do want to please you. But I know, I say this because, I saw it during the time of COVID. I saw it when, there were opportunities and occasions for a community to stand up and make a difference. And we saw that you did. But I also see it because, my best sense of a community is actually from my counterparts in the other country. That when I hear them speaking warmly about the community, they see it as a bridge, just as we do. For me, that is proof that really the community is making a difference. And that certainly is the case with all of you. So I take this occasion, not just to meet and greet you, but also thank you for all that you are doing, really, to keep the India-Thailand relationship going. So with those words, let me once again really renew my greetings to you, greetings of 75 years of independence, greetings of the period that lies ahead of us, which we are very confident, the Amrit Kal, which our people will traverse. And certainly my good wishes to each and every one of you. These are still difficult times, as we saw in the case of Mr. Sehgal. We always wish each other good health, but I think that wish probably means more now than it did a few years earlier. So once again, really my very best. I think there's a Q&A after this? Okay. So if there are issues which you would like to inform me about, or in some way there are issues you would like me to address which I have not done in my remarks, I'd be very happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Jaishankar. Thank you. So we're now heading to the Q&A sessions. So I would like for the team to remove the podium and maybe bring the couch on the stage, and Ambassador Suchitra could also join Minister on the stage. Okay. Yes. So Councillor Ashwin Kotnis will help moderate the Q&A session. So and we'll be running around the room to give you the microphone. So get your questions ready, and let's give it to Councillor Ashwin. Please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you, Varun. While the minister is having a glass of water, I'd just like to inform, sir, that when we started this, we started with a different hall. Then we got so much of requests that we added some chairs to that hall. Didn't suffice, and we ended up... And then we had to take up this bigger hall, and then here too we had to add some more chairs, and the request kept coming till the end. The full hall is a proof of how much the Indian community in Thailand wants to listen to you. And may I, with your permission, open the floor. We have a couple of mics going. Yes, and you can just raise your hands. May I please request you to be very brief with your questions, because we would like to add as many questions as possible. And may I also request you to please introduce yourselves when you ask a question. I think I see Mr. Saraf asking a question, please.
Good Namaste, sir. My name is Sushil Saraf. I'm Pravasi Bharatiya awardee, and I met you in 2016 with the Sushma Swaraji in Delhi. My question is that you are saying that you have to go away with the colonial rule or era. So still in where the British ruled, the Commonwealth, where still the embassy, India doesn't have an embassy. There is a consulate, High Commission. So why we can't, start with the embassy itself rather than High Commission?
In a sense, what happened in the case of the, just so that everybody understands, with all other countries, we have an embassy, like we have in Thailand. But with the UK and with countries which were part of the British Empire, it's called a High Commission. So, as I understood your question, you're really asking me, why are you continuing to call it a High Commission? Why don't you call it? Look, the answer is this. When we say that put behind a colonial mentality, mindset. It is not that, therefore, don't have links with the UK, break your ties. Because that call was made after independence, when the feeling in the country was, let's have a relationship with the UK of a different kind. Okay. Now, what has happened since then is a lot of other countries, because remember, we were the first to get independence, a lot of other countries also got their freedom. So this has become, in a sense, a larger association. It is not an association of the UK and everybody else. These, I think there are about 54 countries, if my memory serves me right. These 50 plus countries today have an association, and it's a very useful association because it spans the entire world. All the continents are covered. And often it gives us a connect. Now the connect may have come from the British era. Say, I have today, using the Commonwealth, a connect with the Caribbean. I have a connect with islands of the Pacific Islands. So I think today the utility of these connections have kept the system going. When Prime Minister asked to put the colonial mindset behind us, what he meant was not something as literal as your question would suggest. I think he meant that sense, that this feeling that somewhere we needed the approval of other people, that there were people who set standards. They will decide whether this is right or wrong. They will decide whether this is good or bad. They will decide what are the norms and standards and the values, and that we will tend to somewhere defer to that, which we should not be doing at this stage in it. So it was really an exhortation to display greater national self-confidence. And I think if you look at that, frankly, I can't think of a more self-confident statement than the Prime Minister himself. You just have to see him stand on a stage, and I think that itself radiates national self-confidence. But it is something which should be systemic. That I think was his message.
Thank you. I'll take somebody from the back rows first. Amit. Dinesh, could you give the mic here to the gentleman? Or maybe, okay, please, sure. I'll come to you later, please. Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Suparaj Chokwanan. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to meet you, Your Excellency, Dr. Jaishankar. You are truly a legend and a rock star in the world platform, because when you speak, the world listens to you and the world follows India. My question, please give him a big ovation. He's truly a star. My question is, India is one of the largest diaspora, which includes professional, businessmen, and people who have achieved success in their respective fields. Do you think that India has utilized the full potential of the Indian diaspora, and how do you think we in Thailand can contribute to India's foreign policy?
I somehow am not comfortable with the way you said utilize the full potential. That sounds very transactional. I don't think anybody would dispute in this room the connection between diaspora and India is emotional. I don't think it's transactional. Now, the question, look, at the end of the day, as I said, even these last few years have demonstrated that in this period, when Indians or people of Indian origin were in difficulty, India showed that it stood by them. And when India was in difficulty, remember 2021 summer, okay? 2021 summer, India going through the Delta wave. And you know, the tremendous, you know, that period of stress when really the sort of the case load went up so much and the fatalities went up. And at that stage, the way the Indian community, the Indian diaspora stood up, I mean, it was frankly magnificent. I mean, there's no other word to describe it. I mean, what people did, the hours they put in, the effort they did, the personal cost they undertook in doing all of that. So, the real issue is, in this very complicated world, how does one nurture this emotional bond? And you know, it's not something which is so self-evident, because if you actually look at many countries whose citizens or people left their shores, not all of them honestly have kept up that same linkage with their motherland as has happened in the case of India. It's a very complicated reason, I mean, why that has happened, why it hasn't happened to others. But I want to say this to you, you know, where India is concerned, and certainly this sense is much stronger today, in today's India. It is also a sense which has been very strongly driven by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That, you know, if there are Indians, if it involves an Indian, it is something, you know, we are very respectful of international law. We know, you know, there are people who take up citizenship abroad, and we naturally recognize all that. But I still remember this line of his in Wembley, where he said, "Ye passport ka rishta nahi hai, ye khoon ka rishta hai."
Maybe next question, I think the gentleman from Tech Mahindra, I think they're sitting next to you.
Very good evening, sir. Your Excellency, Dr. Jaishankar. My name is Chandan Suryavanshi. On behalf of IT sector community and professionals, I would like to extend our warm welcome to you. My quick question would be that nowadays we see many Indian origin politicians taking up some very highly reputable leadership roles in many countries. As you've been leading the way, taking care of external affairs, and we really appreciate the way you have been supporting Indian community all over the world. How do you see their opinion, you know, as a leaders from Indian origin towards India, and you know, promoting our policies and providing support to the initiatives taken by India in other countries, sir? Thank you.
You know, there is a natural pride in any society. If someone from that society does well in any walk of life abroad, okay? It need not be only in politics, it could be, no, please sit down. It need not be only in politics, it could be in other areas as well. But at the same time, you know, and I stress this, it's very important for us in India to be respectful of other societies, their norms, their laws, their culture, their etiquette. Because if somebody is doing well in another society, they are doing well because they have become leaders of that society. And it's important we are sensitive to that. So for us, I think, yes, there is a sense of pride. Yes, you know, it's something. Certainly, we would hope that, you know, I give you an example. I mean, we have a prime minister in Portugal who's of Indian origin. You know, both his parents were Indian, and he actually has an OCI card. You know, now he's a Portuguese prime minister. You know, obviously a leader of Portugal and someone who will obviously be guided by their interests, but he has a sentiment for us, he has an understanding of us, and in that sense, he has actually helped to build a relationship between India and Portugal. So that has happened. But as I said, these are, in a sense, areas where one has to respond with a degree of understanding and sensitivity.
Thank you, sir. Maybe a lady somewhere? I think, Beena, do you want to ask a question? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I am Beena Hora, a director of IDCC, of the current committee. And my question is related to the investment in India. With the ease of doing business and single window clearance often touted, what concrete steps has your government in the last 8 years taken to attract diaspora investment to India?
You know, when you do ease of doing business, it's ease of doing business for everybody. I mean, what we can do and which we try to do is to enthuse the diaspora more. You know, encourage the diaspora to in a sense, invest more, economically engage more. The factors that largely guide people are actually less diaspora-specific policies. They are much more the lay of the land. You know, I mean, I spoke, for example, of infrastructure modernization. Now, you know, we have to ensure if the infrastructure is better performing, people will come. If they don't, even if you are diaspora, you're not necessarily going to invest there with suboptimal infrastructure just because you are diaspora. So, if you look at the last 8 years, I would say the investment numbers itself make a fairly strong case. There are ease of doing business surveys, including by the World Bank. Our numbers have obviously improved very significantly. And a lot of it, quite honestly, is when you actually go on the ground. You know, when you know, sometimes you hear something and you go on the ground. Now, go on the ground can either kind of depress you a bit or can elevate you. Now, most of the time, and I have some exposure, though I've been in government most of my life, except about a year when I was in business. But I have a business side to my family as well. So I'm quite sensitive to that, and I understand that a bit. The business, the business atmosphere in India today really has changed. I mean, it has changed in terms of the credit support. It has changed in terms of, what are all the law, rules and regulations, the paperwork that you have to do. In fact, it isn't just ease of doing business. Prime Minister Modi has this initiative, a set of initiatives, what he calls ease of living. How do we make it easier for the average citizen to live their life? I mean, it can be very small things. Today you have something called self-attestation. Now, in the old days, you needed to actually go somewhere else and get somebody else to sign a piece of paper to say you are who you are. All we did was really to make people go through the hoops when there are other ways of validating people's identity. So there's actually been a great deal of change in simplifying things, in cutting the paperwork. There's a bit, again, which I am most familiar with, issue of passports. There was a time when issuing a passport in India would take months, sometimes maybe more than a year. In fact, Ambassador Swaminathan would recollect, when we first joined the Foreign Service, our relatives said, oh, okay, at least we know somebody will help us get a passport. That was really how they viewed our job. And then what started as months, many months became a few months. Today, actually, if people wait more than a few days, they start to get very impatient and very articulate. Let me tell you, I hear it. So these are really the examples of what is changing, and definitely it is changing, I can tell you, in the business world. The business world today is extremely bullish about where India is going, and some of it is visible in the stock market. But look at, even the FDI figures are a good story, really.
Thank you, sir. The gentleman in the orange shirt, I think, has been raising his hand for a while.
Namaskar ji. Right now, 3 leaders, I think, for role model for Indian youngsters. First one is Modi ji. Second one is Jaishankar ji. Third one is Ajit Dawal ji. Because everyone know about our surgical strike, I like to ask about our Indian security. First of all, my question is big issue from China, because we lot of goods using very 10 rupees, 20 rupees, maximum Indian people using Chinese products. Because right now Modi ji implemented Make in India system, very nice system. How we can stop our Indian people mentality to avoid Chinese products? This is my first question. My second question, in India, for the political, the party is different, but we should everybody as Indian. Even if you are from Tamil Nadu, I am also from Tamil Nadu.
All right, good.
Okay? My name is Thirusulam Swaminathan. Our world ambassador also Mr. Swaminathan. So I like to ask right now, in Tamil Nadu some issues going. Apart from the nation, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister every time saying one dream. One dream means Hindi people don't know, but Tamil person you know.
May I ask you to be please brief?
So
Get the question.
So how we central government to stop this word from the one chief minister?
No, look.
And then I need to how to avoid the Chinese products.
No, I think let's stick with the first one. Look, what happened after the 1990s was we opened our economy, and which was the right thing to do, because at that time there was too much state control, our economy was not competitive, it was important, we dealt more with the world, all of that was very good. But what happened in India was that business houses, when the economy opened up, they were naturally, what are business people most concerned about? They are concerned about, making profits, having a good supply system. So you had a situation where, in order to build their own businesses, in India, we started importing more and more from other countries. Now, if you contrast this, not only with China, if you look at Korea, you look at Japan, I'm giving those as some examples. These countries built up their economy not just by having big business, but also having a supply chain within the country. So what would happen is that businesses in these countries would mainly rely on components produced there, raw materials produced there, vendors who are from their own economy. So our challenge after 25 years of economic reform was the kind of support that the SME, small and medium enterprises, should have got in India, the kind of supply chains that we should build in India, we did not build, or we did not build enough. So, you ask, how do you import less? To me, it's not only from China, though China is the biggest exporter, or importer where we are concerned. You have to give people an alternative. It will happen when there are good Indian products which are available, competitive, and this is possible. The entire, what is Atmanirbhar Bharat about? You asked this colonial mentality question. Atmanirbhar Bharat is also about overcoming the colonial mentality. that somewhere something better is made. It doesn't have to be made outside to be better. It can be made in India and be equally good, maybe even better. So today, the idea, what you can see in India, is a big push support given to manufacturing, lot of support given to farmers, support given to innovation and today to creativity, to skills in India. Unless we do all of this, because actually our manufacturing for our state of economy, the percentage of manufacturing economy is very low. It should not be that number. It should be at least 10% more than where it is today. And that Modi ji is trying to change. For him, the measurement of a good economy is not only GDP growth. We had good GDP growth for 30 years. Measurement of a good economy is also employment growth. It should not be that, companies will make money, it is good. But companies should also employ people, should produce in India. That they have a social responsibility. So, and I do not get into Indian politics when I go abroad. You want to ask me that question, you come and ask me in India. I will be very happy to.
Sir, we have overshot our time by 10 minutes. Should I ask another couple of questions? Okay, sir. I'm anyway getting very angry messages on my phone.
Okay.
Okay, maybe.
Short questions. Maybe I'll take 2, 3 at a time. Huh?
Right,
It'll make it easier.
Right, sir, we'll do that.
Good evening, Her Excellency, Dr. Jaishankar Prasad. Sir, welcome in Thailand. Myself, Pawan Misra from
Keep the question. We are running short of time.
How do you see the future of Indian and Thai bilateral ties, which are the most important area of growth and cooperation? Thank you.
Very good.
We'll take another question. Maybe Sood, I think Rajiv Sood is asking it. And next one, I think Arpita will take a question from you.
Yeah, good evening, sir. My name is Rajiv Sood. I was fascinated to see one of your interviews in Europe when they had questioned that India is buying oil and gas, and you replied them that we buy probably one night worth of oil which Europe is buying. My question to you is, how do you see our relationship, since India has been buying oil from Russia, or how do you see our relationship developing with United States in the near future? I was talking to a banker the other day.
Can you keep it short if you don't mind?
Yeah. Just one.
Yeah.
I was talking to a banker the other day, and he was telling me, be careful. Moody's and all will be downgrading the banks in the future. How do you see that relationship happening? Thank you so much.
Shall we go for another one, sir? Arpita, I think there you were, yeah.
I'm Arpita Kulkarni. I represent Maharashtrian community here. So my question is about today's youth. In today's youth's language, sir, your interviews, and by virtue of that, you are really trending now. So the question is, we have a room full of people where we have excellent managers, strategists and business leaders who have been educated through Indian education system and now working with global MNCs. However, it does not reflect in the university rankings. Our universities are nowhere in top 50. So in this Amrit Kal, what is India doing so that diaspora youth, not only diaspora youth but global youth, will come to be, Indian universities will be attractive to them?
Right. Okay. I'll go through these 3 questions. Maybe
Yes.
I'll take one more round after.
Right, sir.
Okay.
Right, sir.
All right. First question, India-Thai. Look, as I said in my initial remarks, for us today, if I were to look at the 5 big economic partners we have in the world, they are the European Union, the United States, China, ASEAN, and the Gulf. These are the 5 big trade accounts that we have. Now, within ASEAN, all of you know how important Thailand is. So, for us today, especially because there is a lot of volatility in the world, it is very, very important that India-ASEAN relations not just do well but actually grow. I think this understanding is there in ASEAN countries. All my ASEAN counterparts were in India last month because it was the 30th anniversary of our strategic partnership. And I can tell you, tomorrow are my talks, but I am very confident that my enthusiasm to grow this relationship, which I'm doing obviously at the directions of the Prime Minister, is completely shared on the Thai side. So I'm very confident that in different ways this relationship would grow. And I think where all of you are concerned, particularly the economic side and the community side, the travel side, I think these are areas we would like to grow fastest. The second question, on the oil issue. Look, you have to, at this time, oil prices are unreasonably high, okay? Not only are oil prices high, so are gas prices. A lot of them, lot of traditional suppliers to Asia are also diverting them to Europe, because Europe is buying less oil and gas from Russia, or can buy less gas from Russia. So Europe is also actually buying much more from the Middle East and from other sources who would have supplied India. So it is a situation today where every country will try naturally to get the best deal possible for its citizens, will try to cushion the impact of this high energy prices. And that is exactly what we are doing. Now, we are not doing it in a defensive way. I mean, we have been very open and very honest about our interest. I have a country which has a per capita income of $2,000. These are not people who can afford higher energy prices. It is my obligation, my moral duty to actually ensure that I get them the best deal that I can from the world. And I think once you lay it out very openly and honestly, I think people accept it. They may not always appreciate it, but once you have it is there, and you're not trying to be too clever about it. You actually have laid out your interests in a very direct manner. My sense is that the world accepts that as a kind of reality, and that is what will happen out here. And I can tell you, as someone who deals very intensively with the United States, I do see that not just in the United States, but including in the US, that they know what our position is, and they move on with that. The third issue, the university issue, is a good issue. We are very conscious that Indian universities need an upgrade, a massive upgrade. And in fact, there is a new economic policy which has been formulated. Again, partly because of COVID, things got slowed down, but you will now see this actually operationalized. And we want much deeper collaboration with foreign universities. We want more foreign students in our universities. We definitely want our universities to be up there in the top universities of the world. That is, I'm giving you a slightly different examples. If you see sports, once there was a determination in the country that we must do better at sports, we must support our sports people, we must give them the facilities. You've already seen in the last few years, really, the non-cricket sports, how much they have actually taken off in the country. Now, we would like to see that happen in education, that we would, and I can tell you there is a policy, and the education minister, who's really very, very dynamic, he's actually working on how to make all of this happen. So you are going to see very big changes in that space, changes for the better.
Thank you so much, sir. Three more questions. We are just about to, and please be very, very brief. We've overshot our time immediately. Okay, maybe first question by Mr. Poonam.
Three more we can.
Mike, please.
We have it here.
Good evening, sir. My name is Poonam Kothari, representing the Jito, Thailand. I'm making my question very short. We are NRI living in Thailand. We like to help India to contribute to our country and help the schools and the hospital. in our own village. In order for us to do the same, I would like to know, is there any upcoming scheme in pipeline which make it easier for us to help our country?
First question.
Good
Second,
evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Atul Jogani, I think he represents.
Good evening. Sir, you are going to have a trade as one of the agenda tomorrow in your joint commission. I am Atul Jogani, Vice President of India Thai Diamond and Colorstone Association. I am going to ask a question related to my industry. Sir, my question is that India, we already have a FTA with India, and the trade plays a very important in building relations. Due to certain reason, it is still on the books, but it is not working. So, would you look into this, sir, that our Indian and Thai counter brothers can work and grow the business between two countries? So I would humbly request you to look into this matter, sir.
Maybe the lady there.
Good evening, sir. This is Jaishankar from Bengal Association of Thailand. I feel pride and honor and privilege that I share a majority part of my name very similar to a very, respected and honorable person of India. Coming to my question states, sir. As Honorable Prime Minister Adarniya Shri Narendra Modi ji wants Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India, which you have also spoken in your speech, sir. How do you think Thailand, being a neighboring country, can support and help in that dream, sir?
Should we end it, sir? Or?
You said there was one lady who raised her hand, so I'd like to conclude with that.
My name is Rosita Pol. I'm 16 years old. As a fourth-generation Indian Thai, I have witnessed a lot of Korean soft power here in Thailand. I would like to see India exert her soft power more.
Thank you. I'm so glad I asked the last one. Say it ended on a good note. Look, the first one, what can you do to contribute more? What are the channels for contributing more? To a large extent, it depends on you, because if a few years ago, for example, we encouraged, NRIs and PIOs to contribute to building, at that time, Swachh Bharat and toilets building was a big thing. So we asked people saying, look, if you want to make a difference at your home, that's a good thing to do. It keeps changing because, campaigns come. Actually, today, it's quite amazing how they take off, how fast they move. Right now, for example, one of the goals that the Prime Minister has set, all of you know that in India, we have a big problem with water. We have a problem with water, not just getting water into our homes through pipes. We have a problem with the water table, that everywhere in India, water tables are falling. And because of the usage or overusage or the misusage of water. Now, Prime Minister's, one of Modi ji's big ideas for the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, he said we have 750 districts in India. In each district, he urged people to make at least 75 ponds or reservoirs of water storage. So if you add 750 multiplied by 75, you actually, and he said it has to be done in 1 year. Okay. So we actually, as a result of this campaign, are going to have across the country 50,000 new storages of water. Now, all of these are being done through community efforts. Okay. For example, I'm a member of parliament from Gujarat. In the district that I look after, there are some which companies have done. There are some which NRIs have done from outside. They need not physically come there, but they have asked their village in the panchayat to get it done. But I'm citing this to you as an example. So what I would urge is, if everybody in some way contributes, it can be your home place, it need not be your place, it could be in health, it could be in water, it could be in education. There is so much that needs to be done. And every bit actually makes a difference. So I would say, look, depends on the time. Look, I don't know specifically where you come from. Look, ask people around, what will make a difference to you? And whatever makes a difference, I would actually urge you to actually find a way of associating yourself with that. The second issue, the FTA. I have tomorrow actually a set of issues relating to the working of the FTA. Every FTA will have problems. There are areas where we are not getting the market access that we feel is rightfully due to us. It is quite possible the Thai side also has some concerns. So one of the things which we will do is really sit down and say, okay, these are, I think, the problems, so I'm sure they will have their version of it. But our job is to make it easier for people to do business. We want people to do more business, and certainly, making an FTA work more smoothly is part of that. The third bit was the Atmanirbhar Bharat and how can Thailand contribute to it. Look, Thailand, and it can be Thailand, but it can also be Indians or PIOs, NRIs living in Thailand. For us, if there are investments out of Thailand, we've just, for example, had a big one recently. If there are investments out of Thailand in India, and there are very good reasons, we have today, in fact, an entire program called PLI, Production Linked Incentive. If you are to set up a factory, a new manufacturing capacity, there are 18 domains which have been designated, which by the way includes even textiles. So textiles, electronics, chemicals of various kinds. So in these 18 domains, if you set up a manufacturing unit which creates a new capacity, then you bid for incentives which you can get because you are now adding to the capacity and supplying the Indian domestic market more efficiently. So one part of it is really through investment. But the other part of it is also through shorter supply chains, because one of the problems we saw in COVID, if all of us are dependent on a single country and something goes wrong with that single country, and we did have problems with that single country in 2020, then your entire production line comes to a halt. So all of us need some kind of insurance today. We need multiple suppliers, and we need shorter supply chains because sometimes the logistics itself got disrupted. So there are different ways by which Thailand can contribute to a more Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that too is something that I would be discussing. Finally, the last question on the soft power. It's interesting. It depends on where you go in the world. I found, for example, there'd be parts of the world, Gulf, North Africa, Central Asia, where probably Indian soft power is the strongest. Culturally, people identify more readily. But it depends, which aspect. One part when people speak of culture, of soft power, and I think that's what you had in mind too. I mean, say the K-pop and all those wonderful bands that, they came out with, or the TV serials that they have done. I think it's been phenomenal. I think there are things which all of us can learn from it. But, it has to happen. It's a very societal driven activity. The beauty of soft power is it is soft because it is not driven by the government. It reflects the creative urges of society. Certainly the government can kind of give an enabling mode. And one very successful example of this is actually International Day of Yoga. Think about it. I mean, till 2014, it was not that people didn't do yoga abroad. But once actually Modi ji got this inspiration that we must make it an international celebration, then he asked us, saying, go to the UN and get UN to pass a resolution, which was passed unanimously. Then you have seen, actually, I mean, it's, to my mind, actually, if I see in the 365 days of a year, which single day has the largest cultural celebration in the world? I think today actually the International Day of Yoga actually heads it. So it should be an inspiration for us to do other things. You know, it can be, I mean, we are today very energetically promoting Ayurveda and forms of traditional medicine. WHO has just set up the first global center of traditional medicine in India, in Jamnagar. And because again, COVID has made people much more aware and open to traditional medicine and wellness. Or it could be a very different example, you know, something which we are now going to be pushing. I'll share with you. This will now be the International Year of the Millet. Okay. Now, you know, some of you may remember eating millets in your youth. Now everybody switched to rice and wheat. But actually, if you look, what did our parents and grandparents eat? Almost all of them ate millets, and millets are very healthy, they are far more nutritious, and they require much less water. And today when you look at food shortages, actually millets can make a huge difference. So promoting millets itself, it's also a form of soft power. You change people's eating styles. So, and certainly it's better than promoting potato chips. So thank you really for that question. And once again, it's been a real pleasure to meet all of you, to interact with you. What I want to say, I count on your support as a community here for the relationship. I know that, you know, you will always have the interests of India close to your heart, that, you know, you'll always find ways which you are comfortable with in some form contributing to what is happening there. I thank you really from the bottom of my heart for all that you are doing.